everyone, it's Miss Jones and welcome to our art lesson. Because it's Black History Month, I wanted to explore a part of history that has greatly impacted African Americans, both in the past and the present. I find it's important to recognize the experiences of Black people in America and the prejudices they have faced over hundreds of years. Now, you may have heard of the Underground Railroad, which was a network of secret routes and safe houses in the United States during the early 19th century. These paths were used by enslaved African Americans to escape into free states and parts of Canada. Now, there is a legend known as Freedom Quilt patterns that have been used along the Underground Railroad. These quilts were displayed as signals to slaves, telling them that they should pack up for the journey, dress up in a disguise, and get ready to escape. Quilts were also used to alert fugitive slaves to take a zigzag path or follow the North Star, even find shelter. Because quilts were such a prominent American tradition, these codes could be hung on porches or displayed on fences without attracting attention. So these visual codes were extremely important to African American slaves. They were a sign and representation of safety and hope. This art form could have possibly saved thousands of people from slavery. So for our project today, we are going to be looking at a few different Freedom Quilt patterns and creating our own Freedom Quilt squares. Now these go pretty quickly, so I urge you to make a few of them. And I'll walk you through a couple different ones as well. So if you're able to make four of them, they fit together really nicely and you can create kind of your own little quilt, where we're going to be making each square of the quilt. So if you make one, it's kind of going to be standalone, but if you make a few, if you put them together, they kind of look a little bit more like an actual Freedom quilt. So what you're going to need today for our project is you're going to need a few pieces of paper. So I have 4 pieces of paper here for my each one of my pieces. Each one of my squares. You're going to need scissors because we're going to need to cut these into squares, and our paper unfortunately is not square. You're also going to need a pencil to sketch out your designs, and maybe a ruler. There's a lot of straight lines in quilts. I don't know if you've ever quilted before or sewn or seen a quilt. My mother loves quilting, but a lot of them are geometric shapes, lots of triangles with points, lots of rectangles and squares. So it's kind of nice to have a straight edge or ruler. Now the last thing you're going to need is something to color with, of course. So you can use colored pencils, markers, or crayons, whatever you would like. That's totally fine. Now I'm going to post with this video on our Seesaw. I will post a picture or guide that has the different types of squares on them, so you can look at those for reference. Also, I will put, before we get started or at some place in this video, I will post a picture of all of them up so you can look at those and have those up while you draw. You can also look up on Google if you want to look up Freedom Quilts. There's a lot of different patterns out there, even more than the ones I have displayed on this video. So let's go ahead and get started. So go ahead and take your first piece of paper. Now you can kind of do this step with all your pieces before you start drawing, or you can do them kind of one at a time, which is fine as well. I might do them one at a time, or if I want to cut them all at the same time, I might do that just because I'll get in the groove, but it kind of depends on you. I'll see how I feel. All right. Okay, so let's get started. Go ahead and grab one of your pieces of paper, and we're going to kind of fold our piece into a couple different compartments so it's a little bit easier to draw our design. We also want to cut our piece into a square. So if you're going to make multiple squares for your quilt, you'll have to do this step a few times. So with each piece of paper, you'll have to do it a couple times. You'll have to do it So you can either get that out of the way and do all 4 of yours right now, or you can kind of do them all one at a time. It really depends on you. So let's start by turning our piece of paper into a square. So how I like to do that is I like to grab one of my corners and kind of just bring it up so that it matches and lays on that top edge. So I know we've done this before, but I want to just remind you of how to do this. So it should line up. This edge that was on the side here, this edge, should line up with the top edge. So this edge here is going to fold up onto that top edge. And we want to make sure it's fully across so that our point here, this point is divided in half. So make sure it's divided in half like that. And then we're gonna crease it down the center here. So now we should have this triangle flap here. So go ahead and keep your paper closed. We've got this little rectangle that's hanging out that isn't folded. We're gonna cut off that rectangle. So we're gonna cut along this line to cut off that rectangle to make our square. So I'm gonna start this way. It's a little bit easier for me to do it this way. And there we go. So I have my little rectangle. I'm gonna throw that away. I don't need it. And now if I open up my square here, or my piece of paper, it's a square. And I've got one long line in it. So that line's okay. I actually like to have more lines on here, the better, because then it kind of gives you some places to draw on. These folding lines will give you some guide of maybe where to put some of your triangles or squares. So I'm gonna fold my paper a few more times. I'm gonna fold it the opposite direction so that these two corners line up and that I can get a nice cross kind of going through my square. So now when I open it back up, I should have kind of a cross in there. I'm also going to fold my page up. So fold it up so this top meets here, and we're gonna fold it like that. So I've got now one line through the center, and I'm gonna do it one more time and fold it the other way. So we should have 4 fold lines in there. We should have 1 up and down and 2 diagonal. And this is just gonna help you with maybe placing some of your triangles and your rectangles. You might wanna flip it over even so it's a little bit flatter, because I find once I fold it, it kind of wants to raise a little bit. So if you flatten it, or flip it over, you can flatten it a little bit. Now this is where we can start adding our designs. So here are a few different designs of the that are Freedom Quilt blocks or squares. So there's a lot of different kinds, and a lot of them had different they had different names, but also different reasons you would put them out on your porch. So you can either choose it based on the look of the square, maybe if you want to do a less complicated one at the beginning, or one is really you're really drawn to one, but they all kind of have different different reasons that they were put out. I'm going to start by doing maybe a little bit of an easier one that kind of just deals with shape, more straight lines and shapes like that. And then maybe I'll move on to more complicated ones. So I really like the hourglass one. I find that one to be really cool. So when I do the hourglass or the bow tie one, so when you start here, you want to kind of break down the different shapes. So I see that there is kind of a line down, there's kind of like 4 sections. So we're going to do a line down the middle and a line down the middle horizontally as well. So now we have kind of our 4 sections, and I already had my folded lines there, so it made it really easy. Also, I noticed that there's kind of these triangles that come off here. If you want, you can always keep folding your paper if that helps your lines and you kind of find the center. So it looks like I have half my triangle line here kind of already. And maybe I will fold my triangle here in just to create another line. So I flipped it over and I folded the corner in like this and then made a crease. So now when I unfold it, I have, look, I have 4 folds in my square. And it just so happens for the bow tie that there's 4 triangles. So I can just follow those lines now. So I'm going to follow that line and draw my diagonal. And then I'm gonna draw it the other way. So it's really, I know it seems complicated, but it's really breaking down your design. Look at where the lines are going and where they are. And it'll become a lot more simple as you really study the designs and see, take it chunk by chunk. How do I do this side and this side? Luckily, a lot of these patterns repeat themselves. So once you do one square, it's pretty easy to do the others. So I'm gonna do the other ones and then get to my coloring. All right, so that was pretty easy. Lots of just simple straight lines. So now I get to do my coloring. So it looks like the bow tie kind of does some like checker almost patterns. So I'm gonna have to be really careful when I color to make sure I'm coloring the right spot. So you might want to mark them if you can, or just really focus on where you're putting your colors. But I'm going to start my coloring. You can do this with marker, colored pencils. I'm not really sure what I want to do. I think maybe I'll do colored pencils and we'll see how that goes. And think back when you're choosing colors, think back to our color month that we did. Think about complementary color schemes or analogous color schemes, or maybe you want to do some sort of rainbow. You can use more than one color, but think about what you're going to do and maybe put colors next to each other to see how they're going to look before you put them on your piece of paper. So the first square is always the easiest, I find. So I think I'm gonna do all one color first and then go and do my other colors. So it looks like I've got white, white, and then here's gonna be my blue on this side because they kind of alternate almost. Alrighty, so here's my first square, the hourglass / bow tie square. So I'm gonna get started on my second one and walk you through another design. Again, you don't have to choose these designs, you can always do your own. I'm gonna kind of choose which ones I like and maybe show you kind of how to do those. And then, but you can always decide and do different ones if you'd like. So let's get on to the next one. So I went ahead and did all my folds already here. And wanted to get started on my next one. So I'm thinking I wanted to do what's called the North Star, which may be a little harder because it's not as much as triangles. It's more so like some big, like a big square with a few triangles kind of coming off of it. So I'm gonna try and break down this a little bit. It looks like there's kind of like two triangles in the there's kind of two triangles in each four corners here. So because I have my my corner here, my four corners I try and kind of look at, and then I'm trying to look at how those kind of go off of it. And some of this might take experimenting, some of it might take just kind of going for it. It really just depends on you. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold my corners in half again. I think that will be helpful for me. So I'm gonna fold all of these corners in and make, just to make an extra line, because then I'll know where the center of each of my four corners are. So that center is where my big square is going to be. Those centers are gonna have my big square in it. So go ahead and get your ruler, and we're going to take our pencil, if I have one that looks good, and we're going to line up those four corners. So we're gonna take our ruler and line up two of those centers, and we're gonna draw a line between them. Right, so we're gonna make our four corners of or four sides of our square by connecting those middle parts there, those centers. So we're gonna turn it and connect again. And this is gonna create a perfect square. And I know this is like, you're probably like, Ms. Jones, this is art class, not math class. But sometimes in order to create certain designs, you have to use a little bit of math. So there we go. So I've got my perfect square in the center though. And now it looks like I've got two triangles coming off of that square. So it looks like they come right off of the corner. So it actually looks like it goes straight off of each side. So I'm going to line up my ruler with the side here and just draw a line straight that way. And then I'm going to do it the opposite way too, and break it down like that. So now I've got this little square in the corner. But now it's super easy because I just continued my square line basically and went all the way to the edge. And now I'm going to make my triangles, and how I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna start from, if you see this crease in the middle of my middle of my square here, that's gonna be the middle of the square. That's where the one corner of my triangle is gonna be. And then it's going to go up and connect with that line there. So I'm going to connect those ones like that. And I'm going to do that on this side too. Voila. So there's one of our quadrants there, our quarters, is just by doing those extra lines, and we've created part of our star. So let's go ahead and rotate, and we're going to do the same thing in our next square. So we're going to continue this line straight and continue this line straight. And then we're going to see where our triangle has stopped. We're going to put our ruler where that triangle corner is, and then up to the edge where it meets that other line. And we're creating our star. And then we get to do that on this side where we start from the center crease. There we go. So let's go ahead and rotate, and we'll do it again. Voila, so we have made our North Star. Pretty simple once you get the hang of it. So now we get to choose our other colors and make our star here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the flying geese, which is different from it's kind of busy, kind of like the bow tie one, but it has a little bit more of like direction, I guess, and I do really like this one. So go ahead and flip yours over again, and we're going to do the back here. We're going to flip over and create our creases on each of our 4 sections. All right, and flip it back over. So we're gonna take our ruler here, and it looks like we already kind of have one of our things done for us. So we're gonna draw a line down the center, down our vertical line, that crease that we did. And we're going to start with this triangle here. So our triangle is going to go into the center, it looks like. So we're going to do our triangle that's going to go into the center crease that we just created. We'll have it like that. Now, the flying geese, they're following each other. So our next line is going to be straight up and down and kind of almost it's going to be parallel with this one. So we're going to draw a line that's going to be straight up and down right through that center point that we just used. So we're going to draw right through that center like this. Now, it might be useful for you to fold it again. If you want, you can fold it this way so that half of your piece of paper here is horizontal, so you can fold it like that. So now you have it in a fourth up here. That might be helpful because it will help tell you where your next point of your triangle is going to do. So let's do that. We'll fold it like this, and then this way we'll also fold it up like that. And this is like an extra fold you can do for some of the designs where you create it into fourths like that, kind of long ways, and that will help you with some of your designs. So now that we drew that line and creased that line, we know where our point is going to line up. So we're going to start from the line up here, and we're going to go to the point down there. And we're going to do that again on this side as well. So now we have one of our sections done with our two triangles facing the same way. And we're going to do this basically in all of our triangles, but we have to know which direction it's going to go. So this one's going this way. Our next one, we're going to rotate our page so that we kind of just have to do it the same direction each time. But once we rotate it all the way around, it'll look like they're all going a different direction. So we're going to start here again and do another straight line. And then our straight lines are going to go into that center crease for our triangle. And then we're going to draw our center line here. There should be a crease there now. That is going to be a guide. And then we might want to fold back to make sure there's our crease there. Awesome. And we're going to draw our line to that crease. Like that. So now let's rotate. We're going to do it again. Luckily, we already have our line there now, our center line. So we just have to draw our triangle sides. And again, it looks like my creases isn't there quite yet, so we gotta fold it again. And we'll use our line here. There we go, and we've got our last square. And there we are. So now we have our pattern. All of our triangles are going different directions. So now we can color this in. Awesome, so here's my flying geese here, and we'll get onto our last square. So last one we're going to do is the sailboat. So I didn't mention this one in the previews, and it might not be on the list, but I like the sailboat because it told people that they needed to take a boat to get to where they needed to go. So let's go ahead and fold our piece of paper all of our ways. So we fold it in our crisscross. We're gonna fold it in our horizontal and diagonal here. Awesome, and then maybe we'll even fold it a little bit more. So we're gonna fold our fourths here so that we have like a 4x4 square, or 4x4 grid here. So we're just gonna fold every which way. And then we'll flip it over. So we have all of our folds. This will help us sew So our sailboat, it's going to have a line that goes horizontally through the middle. So we're going to follow that horizontal middle crease here and draw our first line. That's going to be the top of our boat. Now we have a couple different squares here. So over here in this corner we have a square, and on this side we have a square. So our next line is going to go diagonally through that square. So we're going to line up that corner crease there and this corner, and we're going to stop right there. And we're going to do that on the other side also. These are going to be kind of the ends of our boat. So we're going to line up that crease middle with this corner edge there, and there we go. And now we can just connect those two lines horizontally, and that's going to create the bottom of our boat. Now we have to do our sail. So our sail is going to start on this side. So we see we have two squares here. We're going to follow that crease up to the top. And that's going to be the part of our sail. And now we need our sail to go all the way down to this corner right here. So this crease here. So we're going to line up that crease with this top edge right there, and we're going to connect that to create our triangle. So here's our sail, and there's actually going to be a triangle in the middle of our sail here. And you can kind of see that triangle right here, that it's not touching any of the edges, it's kind of in the middle. So we're going to follow all those creases and outline that triangle. And voila, we have our boat. It might not look much like a boat really now, but let's go ahead and get it colored, and then it might look a little bit different, and we'll see all of our squares together at the end. Alrighty, so I have my 4 squares here. You might not be able to see them all at once, but here are my 4 quilt squares. I love putting them together because they actually feel like an actual quilt. So if you want to paste your pieces together, you can hang them up on the wall like this, or you could always tape the back of them together so they stick together, so you could flip them over and then like tape the edges together here. And do that with all 4 of your squares, and they would fit together quite nicely. But I love the different colors I used. I love the different patterns. They turned out really awesome, and I am really happy with them. So hopefully you maybe you did all of these squares, maybe you just did 1 or 2, but I hope you really enjoyed this activity, and maybe it taught you a little bit about the experiences of Black African Americans in our country and what they've had to go through to be here and be free and feel safe. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see your beautiful quilts. Thanks, everybody. Bye.